következik Weigl képviselő úr 1 percben.
Dear colleagues, I am not sure that the Kingdom of Bahrain deserves to be, after a short time, again subject of an urgency resolution of the European Parliament. Recently, we were hosting in Brussels a conference on religious pluralism and tolerance in Bahrain, with the participation of supreme religious leaders of Shia, Protestant, Baha'i, Tatai Hindu community, Imam of the municipally Drancy Mosque in Saint-Denis, France, and high representatives of government also participated at the event. It sent a message to the region that Bahrain wants to be a leader on tolerance and coexistence, something what other neighboring countries could not present. If Bahraini authorities violate the human rights of individuals, and they do it, it is their right to be protected, and we should do it. But bearing in mind that this small Gulf country is situated in the sensitive region, subject to the confrontations and pressures from abroad, as well as of the sectarian battles for political prestige, we must be interested for a stable Bahrain, as well as for a country with the respect of human rights and democratic values and proven readiness to cooperate with the European Parliament. Thank you.
Köszönöm szépen, képviselő úr. Farran képviselő úr következik 1 percben.
Très bien, merci Madame la Présidente. Chers collègues, le conflit confessionnel à Bahreïn dérive de la confiscation de presque tous les leviers de pouvoir par la dynastie sunnite des Al-Khalifa. Pourtant majoritaires dans l'archipel, les chiites sont tenus à l'écart des centres de décision par le système clientéliste bâti par la famille régnante depuis plus de 2 siècles. L'Arabie saoudite, qui considère Bahreïn comme son précaré, veille au maintien du statu quo. Riyad redoute que d'éventuelles concessions des califats ouvrent une brèche dont profiterait l'Iran. Une fois de plus, le Parlement européen oubliera de mettre en avant un certain nombre de principes dont il se gargarise pourtant à tout moment. C'est le gouvernement de Bahreïn qu'il faut sanctionner, bien sûr, mais surtout l'Arabie saoudite. L'Arabie saoudite, ce pays qui applique ni plus ni moins que le programme de l'État islamique. Merci.
Most rátérünk a vitára. Elsőként Kelly képviselő úrnak adok szót.
It has been said Bahrain is a key partner for the European Union economically, especially in the area of energy and in fighting ISIS, and that is to be welcomed. But having said that, in the area of human rights, it is ranked actually 163rd out of 180 countries in the Reporters Without Barriers Index. That tells the story. Where we are concerned, the phrase in English, banging your head off a stone wall, comes into being. We have mentioned this on numerous occasions, but it has basically been ignored. So what do we do about it? I think the first author made a suggestion that we should have a work group between the European Union and Bahrain who would look at human rights and be able to discuss the cases of Nabil Rahij, Mohammed Ramadan, Sheikh Ali Salman, and the whole question of human rights, especially freedom of speech and expression. That may be one way to make some progress.
Reméljük, Ward képviselő asszony következik 1 percben.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is not the first time I've stood in this Parliament to speak about the human rights abuses in Bahrain, and I'm not happy with my own country's record on the deals that it does with the Kingdom of Bahrain. On June the 21st, together with 49 fellow MEPs, I sent an open letter to Federica Mogherini on Nabil Rajab's rearrest, and I look forward to her reply, and I thank my colleague Panzeri for his work on this. In the meantime, I'm glad we'll be voting on this resolution and that we'll come together to say clearly that Nabil must be released immediately and unconditionally, with all other human rights defendants and political prisoners in Bahrain. The Bahraini government must understand that allowing free, open and diverse democratic debate and a vibrant civil society will not make it weaker. Democracy and human rights will only make Bahrain stronger, with a brighter future for all Bahrainis. It is time for the Bahraini government to hold up its own constitution and release Nabil now.
Köszönöm, képviselő asszony. Andrikene képviselő asszony következik 1 percben.
Madam High Representative, colleagues, Bahrain is a key partner of the European Union. in the Persian Gulf, and we want to deepen our partnership in order to better respond to future challenges. Regrettably, today, we are debating cases of breaches of human rights and the rule of law in Bahrain. Not much has changed in that country since my last visit, if after 2 years of absence being back to the European Parliament, in our resolution I see familiar names of the persecuted human rights defenders, namely Nabil Rajab, Zainab al-Hawaya, who is forced into exile. And I still recall that we visited her father, Abdul Hadi al-Hawaya, in the jail prison, members of the European Parliament. A big number of new cases of violations of human rights and of Bahraini constitution took place. I call on Bahraini authorities to immediately release all prisoners of conscience and lift the travel ban against human rights defenders. I insist that authorities guarantee that all human rights defenders in Bahrain are able to carry out their legitimate human rights activities without intimidation and harassment. Thank you.
Ezzel a lista végére is értünk, áttérünk a KSDI eljárásra. Szigorúan 1 percben fogok mindenkinek szót adni. Elsőként Anna Gomez képviselő asszonynak adok szót.
With Richard Howitt and Laman Dirkini, I was visiting in Bahrain, Nabil Rajab, Mr. Al-Khawaja and Ibrahim Sharif in prison some years ago. Ibrahim Sharif, I recall, is not even a Shia. He is a Sunni who dared to expose corruption in the regime. And since then, the situation has deteriorated and gravely in the last months, as our resolution documents. The regime in Bahrain is behaving in a totally pyromanous and suicidal way in a region that cannot afford more conflict. One should say that actually our policy regarding Bahrain has been set in the last year since the uprising in 2011 in London, and for reasons that have nothing to do with human rights nor with Europe's strategic interests. They have to do with the strategic interests of London in the trade of arms with the Saudi regime. We cannot afford this anymore. Ms. Mogherini, stop appeasing the regime. Please use the next ministerial meeting of the EU GCC to actually send a very stern message to the Bahrainis and to the other partners in the region.
Köszönöm. Mondtam, hogy 1 perc. Marias képviselő úr.
Ευχαριστώ κυρία Πρόεδρε. Υποστηρίζω το κοινό ψήφισμα το οποίο έχω συνυπογράψει. Η κατάσταση στο Μπαχρέιν στο πεδίο των ανθρωπίνων δικαιωμάτων όχι μόνο δεν βελτιώθηκε όπως υποσχέθηκαν από το 2011 οι αρχές του Μπαχρέιν, αλλά το 2015 τα δικαστήρια της χώρας εξέδωσαν 7 θανατικές καταδίκες, ενώ η χρήση κατασταλτικών μέτρων από τις αρχές κατά των ακτιβιστών και των ειρηνικών διαδηλώσεων έχουν αυξηθεί. Συγκεκριμένα, ο Γενικός Γραμματέας του Κόμματος της Αντιπολίτευσης καταδικάστηκε σε 4 χρόνια φυλάκιση για τη συμμετοχή του σε διαδηλώσεις στο πλαίσιο των εξεγέρσεων της Αραβικής Άνοιξης. Απέναντι στην καταπάτηση των ανθρωπίνων δικαιωμάτων στο Μπαχρέιν, η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση θα πρέπει να λάβει άμεσα μέτρα, ώστε να σταματήσει κάθε παράνομη σύλληψη ακτιβιστών και διαδηλωτών και κάθε απάνθρωπη και ταπεινωτική μεταχείριση των κρατουμένων. Το Μπαχρέιν θα πρέπει επιτέλους να συμμορφωθεί με τις υποχρεώσεις του στο πλαίσιο της σύμβασης του ΟΗΕ κατά των βασανιστήριων και να πάψει να αληθορίζει προς τους τζιχαντιστές του Ντάες. Ευχαριστώ.
Köszönöm. Az 1 perc betartását is Caputo képviselő úr következik, és hát szintén 1 percben.
Grazie Presidente. È la terza volta che discutiamo della situazione in Bahrain. La situazione non è cambiata. La persecuzione del governo nei confronti della comunità sciita continua e sono almeno 97 le persone che dal 2011 sono morte in seguito a torture e maltrattamenti subiti in periodi di detenzione. Preoccupazione desta anche la decisione del Ministro della Giustizia di sospendere tutte le attività della società islamica Al-Wefaq, il principale gruppo di opposizione del paese. Anche il segretario generale dell'ONU, Ban Ki-moon, ha recentemente manifestato preoccupazione per le intimidazioni nei confronti degli attivisti che difendono e promuovono pacificamente i diritti umani e per coloro che vogliono esercitare legittimamente i loro diritti di libertà di espressione e di associazione. Se non si interviene in modo deciso e risolutivo, si rischia che da questa piccola regione del Bahrain potrebbe partire un pericolosissimo incendio alimentato proprio dalla repressione degli sciiti. Grazie.
Köszönöm, képviselő úr. Főképviselő asszony, képviselőtársaim megfogalmazták, hogy jó lenne látni javulást munkajogi szempontból van, emberi jogi szempontból nincsen. Mit tudunk tenni? Várjuk a válaszát.
First of all, let me say that this is not only an issue related to human rights. It is, and it is a fundamental one, but it is also, as many of you mentioned, an issue that risks to fuel tensions in a region that definitely doesn't need further tensions. So it is a human rights issue, but it is also a geopolitical, extremely serious concern. What can we do? First of all, what we have done already, because I've heard in this hemicycle today suggestions or proposals. Let me remind you all that maybe you know already, but still a reminder is maybe needed today that our EU Special Representative for Human Rights, Stavros Lambrinidis, visited Bahrain for the second time last year, had a comprehensive visit that allowed frank discussions on all issues, and in the follow-up of that visit we established an EU-Bahrain human rights working group that met for the first time this year in April. So that kind of working relation on these issues, including all difficult issues we have on the table, is ongoing. If I have to assess if that has brought results today, I have to say obviously that we are facing extremely difficult situations, but the suggestion of working or establishing a working group on these issues with them and having our human rights representative working and visiting the country constantly is there, as well as when it comes to statements and declarations. The last one I think was released just yesterday to point out our preoccupation, our concern on the deterioration of the human rights situation in the country. So we are constantly working on this. Many worrying news came out of Bahrain recently. You mentioned them all. Let me stress this includes the ongoing judicial proceedings on the suspension of al-Wefaq, the sentence against his Secretary General, Ali Salman, as well as the rearrest of Nabil Rajab, and measures preventing activists from travelling abroad. All this, as I said, is worrying in itself, but will also hamper national reconciliation in the kingdom and with a spillover effect in the whole region that is extremely relevant. So we expect these decisions to be reconsidered in a fair and transparent manner in the full respect of Bahrain's international obligations and its own internal constitution. We will continue to closely liaise with all EU member states that are present in Manama to attend trials of prominent activists and advocate for transparent judicial proceedings. On a number of occasions, such as during the visit of Stavros Lambrinidis, we have called for the release of those arrested in the context of peaceful political activities, and we are constantly doing that. We know very well that speaking up on this is important from the EU side as such. This is crucial not only, as I said, on the issue of human rights in itself, but it is also crucial, as was mentioned in one of the last interventions, to overcome the deep polarisation of the country itself. So it would be beneficial for Bahrain in itself, in its stability, its internal healthy societal development to go in that direction. So the EU, both in Brussels and through our delegation, will keep working to protect and promote human rights and fundamental freedom. This is consistent with Bahrain's international commitment, but also with the recommendations set out by the Bahrain Independent Commission of Inquiry and the recommendations made during Bahrain's Universal Periodic Review process. It is first and foremost, as I said, a Bahraini national interest to facilitate and support national reconciliation through a peaceful, inclusive reform process, as it was mentioned and as there were commitments during 2011. And it is, I would like to stress this, a regional and global and including European interest to avoid new tensions to arise in a region of the world that cannot afford further tensions. On the contrary, the region needs reconciliation and de-escalation of political confrontation, and this is exactly the work that we are doing on a daily basis, both speaking up and engaging quietly not only to promote human rights in the country but also to avoid further tension in the region. Thank you.
Köszönöm szépen főképviselő asszonynak a válaszát. Tájékoztatom önöket, hogy a vita lezárásához 7 állásfoglalási indítványt kaptam. Ezzel a vitát le is zárom, szavazásra még a mai nap során fog sor kerülni. Rátérünk az utolsó napirendi pontunkra, és az idő előre halad.